So I've been using the Insta360 X3 for a long time. In fact, I reviewed it on this channel when I first came out, and I absolutely love how innovative this camera is. And thanks to its unique design, it has captured footage that I would have never otherwise caught with a traditional camera. Just check out this scene right here.
Let's go, guys, let's go. Let's run backwards. Whoa! Holy running, dude.
Now that was really crazy footage. My friend was walking with the camera, acting all kind of silly and whatnot, and then he almost stepped on a rattlesnake, and then you can see me running in the background. I totally freaked out, and then we got some really good close-ups of the snake, but it was still a really frightening experience, and it was all captured on the 360 camera, and that couldn't have been done with any other type of camera, because you would have to point the camera perfectly in a weird situation like that where you're freaking out, and that virtually is impossible with a normal camera. So when Insta360 released their new version, the X4 with 8K resolution, I was really excited, because one of my minor complaints with the X3 was the fact that when you crop in the footage later, because it's filming 360 at 5.7K, when you crop in, you do lose some image quality because you're not going to get that full resolution. You're going to get closer to maybe 4K resolution or 2.7K. Now with 8K resolution, you're going to get really nice crisp footage. So let's find out in this video if the upgrade is worth it, and I'm going to tell you why I love this camera so much. So let's get right into it.
All right, so what do we get in the box of the Insta360 X4? So we have the Type-C USB-C input. You have your 1/4-inch mount over here. Look at this massive battery, right? Now, because this is 8K, you definitely want to get a larger SD card. 256 gigabytes seems really good. I love the large display. That's one of the things I really appreciate about this camera. I mean, just look at it, just absolutely beautiful. Nice kind of textured surface over here. Everything's grippy. It just feels solid. Okay, so what else do we have in the box? We have this really nice compact carrying case. This is very useful for keeping your camera nice and safe. You can see that you have some pockets inside here. And we have 3 more items. So we have plastic case for the X4, fiber cloth to keep the lens nice and clean, and then our Type-C USB-C cable. So let's open up this lens guard. So apparently you're not supposed to use this all the time, only in situations where you think you really need it, because this will impact image quality just slightly. So this is a thermal guard. Basically, when you're filming in hot, windless environments at 8K resolution, it's very intensive. So this might be a little bit uncomfortable to hold. So by putting this on, so the hot surface doesn't really come in contact with your skin. And it's a nice kind of guard as well. All right, so we got the Insta360 X4 lens cap. So this lens cap still works with the thermal guard and the lens filter. What's nice is I can just rest it down here. Very safe. So let's unbox the extended edition selfie stick. So as with all selfie sticks, completely invisible, extends 14 inches to 9.8 feet. Carbon fiber. Avoid electrical wires and beware of lightning. Wow, there it is, 300, 240, 120. 1/4-inch thread. Wow. Extend the big section first. This is absolutely insane. I'm just extending it super far. So we got the basic invisible selfie stick. So here it is. You have your 1/4-inch thread at the top, and then you can put a tripod at the bottom here. This is really lightweight and compact and decent extension pull. Very lightweight, much lighter than the extended selfie stick. And look at the size difference. So we have the multifunction bullet time handle. So the way it works is you get the regular selfie stick and the bullet time handle, and then you just screw it on, just like that. And then you get a perfect 90 degrees. You're gonna extend this out as far as you can. You wanna unlock it, and then it's easy to spin around. What I really like about this is you don't have to have it fully extended out for the bullet time to work. You can have it on a smaller turning radius. So you can get some really cool shots, like panning shots here. You can just have it spin like that. Now, if you want this to work like a regular tripod, unscrew it and then attach it to the top. So with the 2-in-1 functionality, as you can see, I can make this into a tripod. And this makes it very convenient, and it adds a little bit of more of a grip.
So let's do a tour of the software. I'm going to show you all the special settings and features that it currently offers. So right now I'm in 360 video mode, and I know that by tapping on the icon over here, you can see I'm at 360. I can switch to single lens mode, and then from there I can switch between other modes, for example, free frame video, which is something that allows you to capture the entire image and then reframe later. It's a little bit different than the 360 frame because in single lens, you're only using one side of the lens to capture the footage. Now, one of my favorite features about single lens is the me mode. So I go into me mode, and basically what that does is that when you record yourself with the selfie stick, it's always going to be attached to you, and it just makes it so effortless to film. This is one of the best things, and this is a theme in this type of camera that you're going to be filming with, is that it becomes so effortless to point and shoot and never have to worry about framing yourself. So in the single lens, you have loop recording, photo, video, regular video, free frame video, and of course, me mode. Now let's go back to 360 video. So when you're filming 360 video, it's very important to talk about what are the frame rates at the specific resolution. Now 8K resolution is the flagship feature of this product, and right now it can go up to 30 frames per second. This is give you the most crisp image, but I do recommend using this setting only in bright daylight situations. They even say that in the description over here. If you're going to be in a low light situation, it's much better to switch it to 5.7K. That way the pixels have enough information to read the light, and then it just makes a better image overall. It's going to look a little bit less janky and blurry and all that stuff. Now there is an interesting 5.7K plus mode, which is trying to achieve more or less the same image quality as an 8K, except it doesn't take as much space. So maybe if you're trying to save on space, check out that setting. To be honest, between the two, I didn't really see too much of a difference. Maybe 8K is just slightly crispier in terms of the sharpness. 5.7K is also a really good option if you want to film in slow-mo. Filming at 60 frames per second is more than sufficient, and if you need more frames per second, then you can go to 4K and get 100 frames per second. Just do note that the image quality will be slightly affected, so I only recommend using the slow-mo mode like 4K or 5.7K if you're going to be filming a dark situation, or you need action sports like you want to film a cool flip trick, then having it set at 60 seconds is going to be beneficial. In 360 video, you have regular video mode, which I recommend. You have active HDR, which is really nice when you want to film in extreme bright or dark situations where there's a lot of contrast in a scene. Maybe your subject is in a shaded area and you need to be able to see that subject. Well, that's a good time to use active HDR. Now, there are some limitations with active HDR. For example, you can't get 8K resolution. So if I go into there, you can see that I'm restricted to 5.7K at 30 frames per second. So let's move on. The next thing is time lapse, and this is really suitable if you're going to be doing a static shot. Time shift is really cool. Basically, you can walk with this camera and then you get a cool hyperlapse. Bullet time is also a really neat feature. You're going to need a special accessory, which I'm going to show you in this video, that you just rotate this camera 360 around your head, and this is really good in like very interesting areas where there's so much surrounding you. 360, maybe you're like in the middle of New York City and you want to capture all the footage. Well, bullet time is amazing for that. With loop recording, it records continuously and it saves a fixed segment. So in my case, what you can do is you can set it up here. You can set your resolution and you can set the loop duration so that it will only capture the last 1 minute and it'll keep rolling at this interval. We have star lapse, which really gives you a cool effect of lights kind of smearing together. You have burst mode to capture multiple photos in a short space of time. You have interval mode, so this camera can take multiple photos at a specified interval. So if I go into interval, you can specify the resolution, and you can do intervals all the way from 3 seconds all the way to 120 seconds, so about 2 minutes. HDR photo, and then you have regular photo mode, and then you're back to video. Now video is what I shoot primarily 99% of the time because I'm going to be shooting in 360 and then reframing this all later with adding horizon lock, things like stabilization and color effects and all that stuff. That all can be done in their amazing desktop application, and it's very easy to apply these effects later. So despite this being filmed in 360, you can set the field of view. So you can de-warp, which lowers the distortion. It's really good for vlogging. You can have ultra, which is really good for action sports. And then you have the mega view, which basically makes it ultra wide, and it compresses a lot of the vertical space into a wider screen. Now right now you can't see anything, but you can switch between the front lens and the back lens as you're shooting, but that's just really for a preview. It doesn't really help with anything. If I swipe to the right, you're going to show all the current photos you have. You can play back. For example, I'm going to play here. So you can see that I'm just playing my footage, and you can go into a column view and you can see all your footage over here. Very nicely done. If I swipe to the right, you're going to get into the video settings or the image quality settings. So right away, you can set the type of look. I like to keep it at standard, but you can change it to something that is more vivid, or you can keep it flat in case you want to import this footage and color graded. You want the most latitude, I would choose flat. But for most use cases, I'm going to stick with standard. I quite like the colors, and I think it's an improvement over the previous model, and I'll get into that into a different section. So right now, everything is set to auto. You can go manual and then set everything like the shutter speed, the ISO, and all that stuff. But I like to keep it at auto because this is the whole point of this camera, is to keep it nice and simple. So let's go back to auto. You can adjust the exposure compensation, and basically what that means is if you increase the exposure compensation, it means that it'll always have a bias to being brighter. If you decrease it, it's going to have a bias to making the scene darker. So this is really handy if you are in situations where the auto exposure isn't working as expected, and you know, for example, if you're filming, let's say, a black cat, and it's very hard to pick up on film, you can just increase the exposure compensation and it'll go up. Here you can adjust the low light stabilization. This is a special effect if you're in a low light situation and you want to change how stabilization works. Auto white balance, I usually keep it on auto. And here you can change the balance exposure. Automatically adjust exposure for any environment suitable for most shots. So this is quite interesting. It's similar to auto, so you can change it between standard and high. I would just keep it at auto. So that's pretty much for the image quality settings. Now this is the real meat and potatoes. Here you can adjust the lock, so we can have a rotation lock. You can lock the screen and swipe up to unlock. You can adjust your brightness. Right now it's set to the perfect brightness for this video. Here you can change what kind of lens guard you have. So right now it's set to auto. You can have a standard lens guard, which I showed in the unboxing, or a premium lens guard, or no lens guard at all. I typically don't want to use a lens guard, so I should probably keep it on no lens guard, because that way I don't have it guessing what I have, because I want the best quality footage, and using a lens guard does add a little bit degradation in video quality. But those are really good for extreme sports in case you might have a skateboard come right into your camera. Now the screen reader is a really great accessibility feature. It's also great in if you can't look at your screen all the time, you can see what's going on with the screen. It basically gives you information of what's happening, like when you're shooting, when you're switching modes, and when there's a low battery and stuff like that. And it does read a lot of prompts that are happening on the screen. Now you have a prompt sound. This is like the sound that it emits. I think I like to have it at high when I'm outside because I know that it's recording, but right now medium is totally fine. They even have this adaptive mode, which should change based on the environment. One of the standout features that I reviewed on the Ace Pro, which is the other camera, the non-360 version, was the AI highlights. And this is a really convenient feature because what it does is it captures key moments as you're filming, and it makes editing a lot easier because you can rely on the auto tagging, the AI auto tagging, to flag the clips that are more interesting into what it thinks. And it does a pretty good job. It's not perfect as like any kind of AI, but it's really nice that they brought this feature to this camera. And because this AI uses onboard processing, it's all done locally on this device. It does increase power consumption, and it might increase the temperature, which is, you know, maybe a good sign that the AI is actually working. Now, this is one of my favorite features, and it's be able to use gestures. You can just wave at it to start recording, for example. And this is very convenient if you're in a quiet situation and you don't want to say, you know, start recording or whatever. You can use gestures, and it's going to be a lot easier. And you also don't need to be very close to the camera. You can do it remotely. Now, the voice control feature, this is something I talked about heavily on my previous review of the Ace Pro, and I absolutely love this feature. It's extremely accurate. You can say things like start recording, stop recording, mark that, which is very key because you can mark your clips and remember to edit them later, and you have all your clips automatically tagged, and then shut down the camera. So I just find this so convenient, being able to talk to my camera and start recording. One use case I've actually used this before is, let's say I'm hands-free, I'm doing like a DIY video of setting up my monitor stand, and it's so annoying to have to constantly reach to my camera and hit record. Instead of doing that, I can just pop the camera in there. I don't have to frame it or anything like that. And I can just say, start recording, and I know it's going to capture the footage. I can hear that audible feedback that it started recording. In fact, check out the scene where I have 3 different cameras. I have the Ace Pro, the X3, and the X4, and I want to synchronize them. I say start recording, and then they all start recording all at the same time, and then stop.
Start recording. 1, 2, 3. That's awesome.
Quick capture is another feature that if you want to press the shutter button, the bottom left one over here, You tap it once and it'll automatically start recording. Now, one of my most used settings is the pre-recording. So I can tap it right here. And what it does is that it saves 10 to 40 seconds of footage without recording at all. And as soon as you press the record button, the last 10 to 40 seconds will be captured on film. And this is so crucial for my workflow when I'm filming myself doing action sports like skateboarding. And this can be extended to any type of activity where it takes a long time, multiple tries, like for example, those trick shots in basketball or golf or whatever you want to do it, where it takes millions and millions of tries, and then finally you get it, you just hit the record button and you know you're going to capture the last 10 to 40 seconds. This workflow means that you don't need to have this huge large file taking up so much memory on your SD card, and then you have to import it and then cut the last 10 seconds. This makes it so much way more efficient. And I actually prefer this style of recording over the loop recording, which is a little bit different. It captures the last 1 minute. I think you could possibly use the loop recording if you must film in 8K resolution. Unfortunately, with the pre-recording, you cannot set it to 8K resolution. It basically stops working. So if I click here, it's only supported for 5.7K 30 frames per second. So you have this thing called time capture, and what that does is that you can set an alarm clock to wake up this camera and automatically start recording. So you can think of some really cool scenarios. You can set the repeat frequency, the duration, and all that really cool stuff. So you can have this plugged into a USB-C, set it up on a tripod, and then have a specific time when you start recording. This is a very niche use case, but it can be very, very handy if you really need it. So we have a very bright indicator light, and that tells you when you're filming or not. Right now it's not filming, but otherwise it would be red. I find this to be very, very bright, especially in sunny daylight. So it's very nice to be able to have that visual cue that you're recording. It's a tally light basically. Here you can adjust your audio settings. They do recommend to keep it on auto wind noise reduction. Typically, if it's not a windy day, you can just set it to stereo or directional focus. Maybe you're vlogging or something like that. But keeping it on auto has been given really good audio results. So this option on the top right is for the dive kit. I'm never going to use that because I'm not diving, but this is waterproof, so I don't necessarily need that. So that's one of the options. Another cool option is that you can connect your Bluetooth headphones. Basically, you can have a remote mic. This is very handy in situations where the camera is really far away, and you can link up your AirPods Pro and then have it record right into the camera. Here you can change your quick settings. This is basically the button on the side over here. You can toggle between them by pressing the Q button. Right now I have a few presets, one for skateboarding, one for vlogging and stuff like that. So settings, you get things like camera info, like the firmware, SD card information, how often the screen should fall asleep. I'm gonna say never for this video. I should have done that a long time ago. You have the auto power off, which I'm gonna also disable for this video, and save energy. Another cool setting is the power off charging. And what that means is that once you plug in this phone, you can charge and power it on, or you can start recording. So that's a really cool option. Stop recording when the power source is disconnected. You can have that as well. And then you can choose the preset that you want. So there's so many use cases. For example, you can hook this up to your IoT device, your IoT plug. And then when that plug is turned on, your camera also turns on and starts recording. So that's really cool. You can set up a lot of cool home automations with that. Now we go into image settings. This is a very important setting. It's a little bit buried in the settings. Anyways, with image settings, you can change things like the codec. Right now, I like to keep it at H.265. My computer is using the latest Premiere Pro, so it's able to handle this latest codec. It's basically very efficient, and it gives you a very nice quality image without taking too much space. Now, if you have older devices or older computer, then you can switch to H.264, but I don't recommend that. The bitrate, they do recommend keeping it at high. That means it's just gonna take up more space, but this gives you more information to play with. And this is especially important if you're gonna be going in scenarios where the scene is very complex. Let's say you go into a forest or you have water splash effects. Having a high bitrate is essential in that regard. Now, video sharpness is a contentious topic. They recommend to keep it around medium to low. Don't go high because it's gonna start looking a little bit too cheap. So I think medium is a good compromise. Anti-flicker, I never really use that, and in-camera stitching. So I don't really use that feature as well. So in this setting, you can customize the quick button, as I mentioned before. So you can change it so that it switches shooting modes, access the preset page, takes a photo, mark a highlight, start pre-recording, enter exit album, all these other settings. The menu button, which is the one over here on the bottom right side of the corner, you can switch shooting modes. You can make it a power button, take a photo, start recording, and stuff like that. So a lot of customization with the tactile buttons that are featured on this camera, which is very handy. It gives you all the options that you need. Wi-Fi settings set to auto, that's not a big deal. Long press shutter button to cancel recording. This is another really cool feature that I saw on the Ace Pro, where you can start recording and then you can long press it and then it'll just stop recording. Bluetooth wake up, that means that a remote device can wake up this device. I have it disabled because that probably would take up more battery. You can change the external mic gain if you have this hooked up to an external mic. Yes, you can do that, but you need an additional accessory. And then the thermal grip cover, that's really cool. It has automatic recognition. I'm not sure why it needs to know that, but basically if you have this thing get too hot, then it's recommended to use that thermal grip. Date and time, that's all important for your metadata on your files. Gyroscope calibration, I never use that. Tutorials and all that other stuff like certification. So that's the full tour of the software and all the various settings. Overall, it's a very snappy interface. I really like how intuitive it is. You just pick it up and start using it right away. And it's very, very customizable. You can tweak all the settings. The screen is large and big, very easy to navigate with your fingers. And of course you have all the tactile buttons. And yeah, so that's pretty much it in terms of the software, the screen, and all that stuff.
So we're gonna do a side-by-side comparison with the X3 and the X4. We're gonna set the same settings and we're gonna see how it turns out.
First of all, I have to say the inbuilt microphone sounds great. The sound of my voice is very clear. Now in terms of image quality, I did notice a significant improvement over the X3. If you look at the side-by-side comparison, I noticed that the colors on the X3 just look really washed out, whereas on the X4, everything looks a lot more crisp, and the overall color science looks a lot more accurate in real life, and the image is just a lot brighter and easier to look at. Now, one of the key features of this camera is the ability to shoot now and then frame later. And this is so important for me because when I'm on vacation or filming stuff with my camera that is really spur of the moment, kind of serendipitous stuff, I want to be in the moment. I don't want to have to worry about pointing the camera and then getting the exact frame and all that stuff. All I need to do is just simply point the camera in the general direction of the subject, and I don't have to worry about whether or not it's framing the right subject or not. It's just so much more easier to film those key moments. And this is especially helpful in action sports, specifically for me when I'm skateboarding. One of the hardest things to do in skateboarding when you're filming your friend is that you want to follow them. But unfortunately, that requires you to kind of frame them as you're following them, and it can be really difficult because you're also on a skateboard. So by being able to simply just point and shoot, literally point and shoot and just follow the skateboarder, the X4 has made it so much easier to film fast-moving subjects. And another amazing aspect of this camera is that it essentially is one of the best filmers in the world using its AI tracking. All you need to do is set it up on a tripod pretty close to the subject, and then you can do the thing that you need to film. For example, in my case, I need to film myself skateboarding. I don't want to have to rely on someone to capture me perfectly. So I just set the camera on a tripod, do my trick, use the pre-recording option so that I can only capture the last 30 seconds. So the result of the video is that you basically get a video that is perfectly filmed, much better than a human. It perfectly pans on the subject. You use the simple drag a box around the subject and it'll automatically deep track that subject. It just makes it so much easier to film yourself in all sorts of situations. Not to mention that it has voice gestures, hand gestures, and audible feedback visual cues so that you know that you have all the tools and customization and tactile buttons. You can program buttons on this camera to do things that you need it to do. It's all very, very customizable and very easy to use.
You can see the X4 is slightly bigger. Holy shit.
Yeah, quite a bit.
So one of the things I really liked about the X3 was how large the screen was. And this screen is definitely the same size or larger. I noticed that it's very, very bright in daylight so that I have no issues seeing it. And best of all, unlike the Ace Pro, I'm able to use my polarized sunglasses and view the screen. So when I'm out in the sun wearing sunglasses, I have no problems using the screen. The menus are very snappy and feel very responsive. So overall, they did a great job with the software and the overall just usability of this camera. Now, one of the killer features of this camera is the invisible selfie stick. Basically what you do is attach this to a pole, any selfie stick, and it automatically edits out the stick. That basically eliminates the whole workflow where typically if you use a regular action camera and you're using a selfie stick, first of all, it looks really ugly and people know that you're filming yourself. It just doesn't look very nice. But having that invisible selfie stick automatically be removed as baked into the footage, you don't have to do anything, is absolutely amazing. Now you get a bunch of video modes. For example, you get me mode, which makes it even easier to film yourself because essentially the camera will be always centered on you, no matter where you place the camera. It's just an amazing feature. You get things like star lapse, loop recording, pre-recording, as I mentioned before. And then you can switch to slow motion by going to 5.7K, just decreasing the resolution a little bit. Then you can get 60 frames per second in that. So all the video modes are available and it gives you a lot of versatility of how you want to film. They've also tacked on AI features and mark that features, which makes it very easy to kind of highlight the clips that you are recording. Let's say you're on a long vacation to record a whole bunch of clips, and then you can use the AI assistant to highlight the clips that are very interesting, or you can just say with your voice, mark that, and then you know for later when you're editing your video, it's very easy to select the clips that really mean a lot to you. One of the best things about Insta360 is not only the hardware, it's the software. The software lets you quickly upload all the footage in the background from the device onto your camera so that you can post to your social media really quickly. You can edit really quickly. In fact, it has an AI auto editor, so you can just select all the clips, automatically import them, and then it's going to apply all the effects and transitions and sound and all that stuff. So it just makes it very easy to get your content out of this camera onto the internet to share with your friends and family really fast. Now, in terms of the desktop software, it is very powerful, and it allows you to track anything. You can set keyframes, you can change the angle, the perspective, have really cool distorted world views and stuff like that. And that can all be done on the app or on the desktop as well. I like to use a desktop because I'm a power user and I want to be able to reframe everything with my mouse and keyboard. It just makes it a lot easier with keyboard shortcuts and all that stuff. So to conclude this video, I have to say the X4 is a major improvement over the X3. I really like the fact that it shoots at a higher resolution, which means that your memories are preserved in more detail, and this is especially evident in the picture quality. The quality just looks a lot better in terms of the colors and the exposure, and their algorithms, their color science just has significantly improved from the previous version. The previous version was kind of muddy at times and didn't look that great. But the quality, not only just the resolution, but just the actual image quality, the colors just look really good out of the box. Now, this is a very essential, unique tool. It may not replace your action camera, but I think it will, given the new resolution settings that makes it almost compete with that of a regular fixed lens. Being able to quickly capture anything without having to worry about, am I framing the right subject? You can be in the moment, capture that footage and reframe later, or you can have this work as an AI filming assistant that films you perfectly, better than a human, better than any other human would. It is an amazing camera, and I honestly think this is the best 360 camera on the market. It's very hard to find any other competitor that does this so well. So check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.